All right, good morning, everybody. This is February 5th, and in the way of celebrating things in the world, we have Black History Month this month. An important time to acknowledge important achievements of the past, but importantly too, to pay attention to the systemic racism that marks our history and our present. So to say that we should celebrate this time is a complicated invitation. And I wanted to open with a very brief poem by one of my favorite poets, Lucille Clifton, who wrote this poem called, "Won't You Celebrate With Me?" Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come, celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. So a complicated invitation to us as we work to try to bring about a world that has less inequality in it and has more possibilities for people to be safe and to be acknowledged for the gifts they are. And so I welcome you all here today for our Friday meeting. And some of you may be here the first time or maybe returning or maybe a speaker today. So this is a time we give at every meeting for new folks to just say, here I am, happy to be here if that's what you're happy to be. If you're associated with an organization and want to mention that, that's fine, but it's just a very brief note that you're here. So you can unmute yourself and there's no order to this. So anyone who's new or coming back after a while or coming here to share with us today, let us know you're here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mercedes Samich. I'm a physician assistant in Tacoma, Washington. I started working with folks experiencing homelessness when I was a PA student. The University of Washington runs a foot clinic for those experiencing homelessness. So my interest started then, and I'm a friend of Jenny Lorton, so she invited me to join you guys today. So welcome, or thanks for having me. Yeah.
Welcome, Mercedes. Yes.
Hi, my name is Jenny Sheppy. I am a health promotion coordinator with Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. I was invited by Rihanna and Michael, who are the community liaisons on our community engagement team at the health department. And I am going to be working on, or have started working on, connecting with emergency shelter managers, and we'll be connecting with outreach teams to get vaccine out to folks. And so that is my job. I'll be coming back to the coalition and talking more with you all as we move forward with our planning, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to say hi, let folks see my face, and just say that I'm really looking forward to doing this work with you all, and committed to keeping folks in the loop on what our plans are and seeking input. And I am working with Valerie Knight at Pierce County Human Services and others to move this important work forward to get folks experiencing homelessness vaccinated for COVID-19. Thrilled to be here. Really appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Welcome, Jenny. Look forward to working with you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bill Fay. I guess I'm going to be the resident poet here. Thank you, Rosemary, for that fine poem. I was invited by Garrett and Kevin and Larry Sequist. Just completed a poetry book for a nonprofit, Advocates for Immigrants in Detention Northwest. They used it as a fundraising premium, and it was quite successful. My goal is to work with any number of the organizations represented here to create a poem book on what tentatively titled, working title of Hymns of the Homeless. It would be a series of 10 to 20 vignettes accompanied with photography. And then that would be made available to the organizations represented here, that they could use that for awareness, for a premium in fundraising, et cetera. It's the same model, just a larger scope and a different focus. This time the focus will be on the homeless. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll get an opportunity to speak a little more on this later. Thank you.
Welcome, Bill. Look forward to talking with you.
And I wanted to go ahead and introduce myself, if that's okay.
Sure, Dee Dee, welcome.
This is Dee Dee Gathers. I'm one of the city council members for the city of Fife. And I immediately raised my hand to join this group because I'm so passionate about the state of the homeless and wanted to join this group. I do apologize that my first visit, I'll have to jump off. I do have a 9:30 conference call with some of my hiring managers. So in addition to being a council member, I'm a senior recruiter for Multicare. And so I'm just really pleased to be here and can't wait to see how I can help.
Welcome, Dee Dee. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Fry. I'm with a company called UMC, and I was invited by Paula Anderson. We've been working with Paula at New Hope Resources on some products to help folks in homeless situations, and actually have been working with Seattle Public Utilities, designing some products to help them fight the homeless situation as well. So it sounds like we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about our products that we've developed, both for New Hope and for SPU and some others as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy seeing some of the things that we're doing.
Welcome, Bob. We look forward to hearing about these.
Yeah, we appreciate the invitation to be able to talk about it. Thank you.
Well, we think we'll move forward then, but Rob, if there's anyone here who comes back next week and you didn't get an opportunity this morning, then we'll have an opportunity every week for us to do that. So we really want to make connections with you, and we invite people to put their contact information in the chat in case others hear of you and would like to make the contact happen more quickly. So thank you all for coming.
And Garrett, did you want to queue up our next item?
Sure. We had a late addition to the agenda. This is a video of the groundbreaking of LIHI's most recent project, and this is with the Puyallup Tribe. So we're going to see a quick clip here of the opening, which is pretty cool. And then Sharon's going to give us kind of a little talk about it and some other projects in the
What this means is that there shouldn't be a tribal member without a roof over their head. Think about that. That hasn't been like that in my lifetime. There's always been somebody on the street. It's just what happens sometimes. But sometimes a little helping hand, the whole life can be changed. These people get food, these people get a roof, counseling if needed, anything that they can have that can help them. Clinics next door, all the social services they could possibly need. This is the perfect spot. I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming here.
Individuals. We've been doing homeless events for a long time for our people and other people of this community. And even though these are homes just for our people, I'll tell you what, there's other individuals that will be with them that they'll bring that are homeless too. And all those homeless people, they're not homeless just because they have addictions or problems with themselves. A lot of people right now are lucky to have homes, roofs over your heads. With all this going on, people don't have jobs right now. So this is a very important time to do this work. Very important time. And I'm proud of the Puyallup Tribe for doing it.
They have a location to call their home. Design it how they want, a bed to sleep in, and remember what it's like to be always warm and cared for and fed. That is what we were supposed to do here. We are supposed to leave things better than we found it, and today we are all witness to that happening. And I'm so thankful to be here. I really do work with amazing folks, staff, community, leadership. We all have a role. Again, I utter the same words as my fellow council members. Thank you, language. Thank you, culture.
All right, that was awesome. Sharon, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for watching the groundbreaking. And I should just tell you what happened was that on Friday, my staff said that they were going to start putting up the fence around the site for the tiny house village. And, we just think very simply, oh, we're just, going to start getting a vendor in to put in a fence, right? And the tribe said, what? You're putting in a fence? We haven't blessed the site. We need to do a groundbreaking. So between Friday and Monday, they planned this incredible ceremony, and they got their singers and drummers who had not performed the entire time during the pandemic until now. And the tribal leaders, all the council members were there, and they spoke around the impact of homelessness on the community. So I gotta really praise the tribe for committing to a tiny house village, and there will be a second one. So hopefully after we set up this one, they would like to set up another village in Fife that would include families with children. This one would be for singles and couples, for people who are linked to their behavioral health services. I think many of you know the location. It's across from their medical center on Wright and it's technically in the city of Tacoma. So so we're very, very happy with the effort working with the tribe. They were able to get some federal funds to stand this up and operate it. So anyway, we'll keep you informed about it. As you know, we also opened up the village at 6th and Orchard, and that one includes families with children, couples, and single women. And then we also have Thames, Thames on McKinley happening. So when the Puyallup Tribe village is done, there should be 101 tiny houses in Tacoma. So I wanted to let people know about a new initiative. Is that we were fortunate to be able to sign a purchase and sale agreement on a hotel. And the hotel is smack on the boundary between Tacoma and unincorporated Pierce. And it's the Comfort Inn, which is, it's sort of like on Hosmer Street. And it has 90 units, which could include like maybe up to 120 beds. And we would like to ask the, in particular, the county and the state for support. And what we would like to do is see if it could be used short-term for COVID hoteling, and then later convert it to permanent supportive housing. And it has a lot of community space. It would be a lot cheaper buying this than starting, new construction with a vacant piece of land. So we just signed a purchase and sale agreement a few days ago, and we would hope to try and get the state. I don't know if you've heard, but the governor has 70 million available for purchase of hotels, motels, and buildings. And then we're hoping that Pierce County would help, and that we see it as maybe it could be clearly supporting City of Tacoma and Pierce County outside of Tacoma. So like a joint effort. So I haven't as yet met with Councilmember Beal, but it's in his district, and it's also in District 5 in Pierce County. So we're going to begin this effort. We're going to need partners. We're going to need help. It's a heavy lift to, all of a sudden, like figure out how to, buy something quickly. But I hope that we can get your support. And then the other thing is that we've had a lot of homeless encampments, people living in tents right by the Starbucks in Lincoln District. We purchased the property across from Starbucks that's known as the Tat Plaza. It's on, 38th. And so we would like to consider, we're still researching this, the ability of maybe putting a tiny house village in the parking lot. So we recently met with Lincoln High School staff, and to gauge their support, they seem to be very enthusiastic, because their wood shop is right now building tiny houses, or was building tiny houses, and even Lincoln High School has typically more than 100 students who are homeless. So, but this is evolving. This is, I'm telling you, it's at the very beginning. I will be presenting a small, a site plan and a budget to the City of Tacoma and then Pierce County, and see if they will consider standing up and helping us do another tiny house village. So that's my quick report. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And those are exciting items. That's awesome. So just to clarify a little bit on our agenda this morning, we shuffled things around. So we're not really going to do the This Week on the Streets section. However, if folks do want to share things toward the end of the meeting as time allows, that may be an opportunity. What I'm going to do now is reach out to Tegan Tidball from the City of Tacoma to talk about the City of Tacoma's homelessness plan. So Tegan, you ready to go?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Oh, my earphones aren't working. I'm just gonna lose them. They dropped in the other day, so they might be gone to us. So wonderful to see everyone's faces and so many people I haven't seen in quite some time. I always love coming to this group. So let me share, can I share my screen?
Let me make you a co-host so you can do that. Just a second. All right, you should be able to do that now. Maybe.
All right, looks like. All right, can you see it?
Yep,
Okay.
coming up. There we go.
Unfortunately, then I lose all your faces, but that's okay. So anyways, thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Tegan Tidball. I'm the systems analyst in homeless and household stability at the city of Tacoma. So, is this working? Bear with me. I don't know why it's not changing. Oops. Okay, so today's agenda we're going to talk about, so we've been developing a homeless strategy for the city of Tacoma. So a lot of things have happened that are influencing the development. So I want to go over a brief overview, talk about some of our guiding principles that we would really want to infuse into the strategy, our top priorities that we're kind of seeing at the moment, and our community engagement and outreach process. So the guiding principles, something that the city of Tacoma has been focusing on a lot, is addressing racial disparities in the homeless system. As we know, we are not unique in this issue across the nation. We're seeing people of color, Black, Indigenous, disproportionately represented in the homeless system, and we are in line with that as well. So we are taking we want to look at every way that we look at this homeless strategy. We want to make sure we're addressing racial disparities. So that is probably one of our overlying #1 guiding principles for everything that we look at. We want to make sure we're addressing racial disparities. Another principle that we have is evidence-based practice. We want to make sure we're doing the interventions and the strategies that are proven effective for populations. And that includes BIPOC community as well. We know that mainstream services don't serve that population with positive outcomes in the same way. So we really want to use data. We want to use our evidence that we have to be innovative and do new strategies. Also, another guiding principle is that we're really making sure that this is a community and regional collaboration. Obviously, we're all in it together. We all need each other. We all have different parameters and guidelines, but we have so many smart brains and we have so much will to do this work that I know that it's really important to look at how we collaborate as a region to do this work. So that's another principle that we're looking at and making sure we want to infuse. The last one that I'm going to highlight, which of course there's more, we could go into lots of things, is that we want to align with local, state, and federal laws and legislation. So as we know, there's a lot of laws and legislation that impacts us. We're also making sure that we align with the public health emergencies that Tacoma has. We're currently in 2. One is the public health for encampments, and the other one is for the global pandemic of coronavirus, COVID-19. So also we want to make sure that we're aligned with CDC guidelines for safety. We also want to make sure that we incorporate Martin v. Boise, those rulings as well, and also to hopefully align as much as we can to understand the uniqueness of Tacoma in our region to the county and state strategies as well. And that also includes some other things like SAMHSA and things of that sort too, which we know is overreaching as well. So I want to highlight those ones. Guiding principles. Okay, so here's the areas that we have outlined is kind of the program areas that we're focusing on. And the reason that we have these is 2020 was supposed to be our year that we competitively bid our portfolio. Due to COVID-19, we decided not to do that and keep things going as we were. We didn't want to competitively bid anything during a global pandemic, as for so many reasons you can understand. So these are our buckets of funding. So these are what we currently allocate in the community as our needs. And so those are what we really want to look at and innovate and see what kind of strategies. As we know, we have this for the biennium, but we're really also looking at this continuum to see what can we do unique and different for the city of Tacoma and the individuals that live here and our unique issues differently. And again, I put racial disparities at the bottom because it's still very important to look at how racial disparities impact homelessness in each one of these sections of work. So I'm gonna keep going. I know we're doing questions at the end, so. So this is kind of the phase we're at. Like I said, we're still in a draft. There's nothing set in stone, but we're still evolving. It's still flexible because things keep changing as well. And that's what we hope, is that will be a living document that we can keep modifying as we have new information, new strategies, new things of that sort. So we're really in the community outreach and engagement phase. So we know that it is critical and imperative to get community feedback. And that means that it's neutral, it's objective, and so that we can come up with new strategies, interventions, and approaches to supporting people and families experiencing homelessness. So some of our outreach areas that we want to look into is, of course, people with lived experience, and hear what their experience is in those program areas we talked about in the previous slide. BIPOC community as well. We know that's very important to get their feedback. Speaking to the community providers, community stakeholders, neighborhood councils, and then funders, private and public, and philanthropy. I can never get that word out. So we know that those are kind of our biggest partners to look at. Another thing is just looking at general community members who maybe don't touch the homeless system. I know they are also a very important part because they're experiencing, but maybe they don't sit on the coalition. Maybe they're not a provider, but they've got a person living down the street or on their sidewalk. So that's also important to look at. So this is the phase of whether we're really at to really, I think, is going to solidify and start bringing this plan to life. And so my hope is that we can partner with the Homeless Coalition, because there's so much expertise in this room, in this body of people, that we can identify a process for community outreach and engagement and work on that together in some capacity. And so my ask is really, oops, I jumped ahead. So thinking of like the people in this room is, how can we strategize that? What can we do? Is there somebody that's identified, an internal partner or member of this group, that would be interested in supporting this work with the city? So that's my humble ask at the moment. And if not, if there's not anybody that feels like this work is calling to them, do we have a recommendation? We're always open, and this is like obviously like a very critical part of the work. So I'm just throwing that out there, planting some seeds. We don't need answers right now, but I definitely want you to start thinking about it if possible, and get back to me. And so our next steps, and I know I've talked about this with Rob and Garrett, our hope is that in future breakout sessions and future meetings, we can get more into each one of those impact areas of street outreach, shelter, prevention, housing, and a mental health and substance use disorder, and really think strategically around each one about strategies, interventions, approaches, things of that sort, so we can really dig in and see what we have. Because obviously the city, we have our different set of parameters, and I think that frame is important so that we can really dig in and be innovative in ways we haven't before. And obviously, as this continues, there will be plenty of ways to outreach and engage with us and provide feedback, input, maybe some interesting ideas that you have. So I know that will continue to grow as we move through this process too. And my hope is to come back to the coalition regularly and talk about this update and get feedback and keep moving together as partners. So this is my contact information. I have Erica's as well, who is my program manager. Should you have any ideas or want to talk it out more, please reach out to me. I'm always available for feedback, and I love a good hearty discussion. So I'm ready for questions.
Awesome, Tegan. So the first question that came up in the chat was, is it possible you could drop this file into the chat so folks can grab it if they would like to, or you could email it to me and we can post it on the website.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, that'd be great. And let's see, what else do we have? Megan asked in the chat, what are the measures the city is considering for feedback? How will the direct on-the-ground shelter and outreach workers be able to give feedback in an anonymous way? Mm-hmm. And she adds, oftentimes folks are scared to speak out for fear of retaliation.
Yeah.
And do you mind stopping the screen share so we can all see each other? That'd be awesome. Thanks.
There we go.
Perfect.
Those were great questions. There was a few of them. So, and I think that's part of what we're still building in a sense of feedback. I mean, we've got a lot of tools available to us, but I think what's important about the community outreach is that it's not fully led by the city. It's in partnership in some capacity, that somebody else is receiving that feedback versus us asking for it. Because I think there's hard to be objective when you're asking for something in that capacity. So I think that's part of what I'm asking is like, how can we work and partner together? We have tools that we can provide. Like we have a bunch of different survey tools so people can get it sent right to their phone, whether it's persons in encampments or staff. And they can just fill out a link anonymously that goes into like the ArcGIS, IGS ones, like the Survey 123. So we've got a variety of tools that are available to us and we can explore new things as well. And I think that's a part we're building out. So I don't have a firm answer. I'm looking for ideas to make sure that we can ensure people have confidentiality and they can respond in ways that feels really honest and authentic, because that's what we need to make a good plan. We don't need what we want to hear. We want to know what's really going to support people and address that. So.
Great. Maureen, you had a couple of questions. Do you just want to state them?
Sure. Tegan, thanks for coming. So first I was thinking, what's the time frame for the outreach and engagement portion? But then I realized, I mean, what's the time frame for completion of the strategy itself? Does this go to council for council's approval? Just process kinds of things so we can.
Yeah, I think those are great questions, Maureen. I would say yes to all of the above. Of course, we have to go to council and present those things. And so since we took a step back just recently when we were figuring out how to do this community engagement, our timelines, we're still a little flexible with it, to be honest. We want to spend at least a few weeks to a month really doing the community outreach. We want it to be robust. We realize there's so many stakeholders, so many partners that are working on this, that to get an active representation, it's going to take a little bit longer than just like a couple weeks or a month. So we know that we need a little bit more time. So, I mean, our hope is I know we're going to be presenting a little bit of an update similar to what I just shared with you. And I'm hoping that we have more of a strategy as we partner with the Homeless Coalition and all of you to give them a little bit different timeline of how that engagement is going to look. That's part of my hope. So we're going to be going back to council later this month, I believe on the 23rd, to give them a status update of a lot of homeless things, but also our plan for this. And so my hope is that we'll actually start to create that timeline to get a little more solid than it is currently.
Great. Gabriella?
Oh yeah, I'm curious. Basically, I'm a person in the LGBT spectrum, but they mentioned like the unique challenge of like people of color, but what about people within the LGBT spectrum? And I guess, like what can someone, I guess like myself, help bring to the table, I guess?
Well, everything that you bring to the table is important. And I understand that we didn't call out every population. We have a lot of special populations that we need that voice of. And we need your voice as well. So I hope any feedback you give us will absolutely be important and incorporated. And the reason that we've called out racial disparities is because how it permeates across and the intersectionality of that with other identities as well. And obviously there's a lot of stuff happening around that that's incredibly serious, and we have to take it serious as well too. So that's the reason that one's called out. It's not because the other ones aren't valuable or important, because they absolutely are. And we absolutely want to hear and address those particular needs as well, because we know very similar, like mainstream benefits and supports aren't also the same for the LGBTQIA community as well, right? So we also need to have that information so that we can create supportive programming.
Oh, okay. And I guess I was first like, how would one get involved with you as far as like wanting to do your outreach?
Well, please email me. I think that's a good start. So the more people I know that are interested that want to do this work, the more we can then create our strategy and our team to do it. So anybody that's interested, please message me or Erica, whoever you're comfortable with, because I think that's what we need to like start wrapping our arms around. Like, how do we bring in your skill set to do that particular outreach? So it's not just like one person. We need a little team, and more input, the better. So I'd love you to email me, please.
Okay, thank you.
Maureen, I saw your hand up.
Tegan, one of the things with respect to the request of the coalition that we partner with you in the outreach and engagement, is there a way that you can actually attend coalition meetings during that period of time? You were saying like, you know, several weeks or a couple of months, because that's been a real gap our
Okay.
ability to have any updates from the city, that sort of thing. And so, I mean, I just think, partners need to be together in some way. And I think if you were able to commit to attending our Friday morning meetings and bringing us any updates from the city that we might not always be aware of or otherwise aware of, makes it more attractive for us to want to spend the time. I mean, if we're going to commit part of our agendas for the next several weeks to engagement, which is, I think, what I heard you request, then that's a pretty hefty commitment from us in terms of our collective time and other things that we might want to work on. And so, and I think we're going to want some kind of a smaller group working on exactly what do the, or maybe you join our Friday morning planning groups. So, because I mean, those folks spend a lot of time talking through, if we're going to do breakouts, what are the questions? How are we going to manage them? How are we going to handle any reporting out? They don't just, we don't just do them because they're fun to do. They are really thoughtful. They take time to prepare for, they take time to process, they take time away from other information. And we have to have a way to close that loop. So I just, for me, I need a commitment from the city that they really want to seriously partner. And that first demonstration for me, this is just for me, is that you're here every Friday from 9 to 11.
So was that also a formal invitation to join the steering committee?
Well, it's open to anybody.
Okay.
Yeah, always.
Okay.
Anybody. The group we take like a 5-minute break after the meeting, or sometimes 10 minutes. You stay on the same link and people work on the next series of meetings. So it's, yeah, that's open to anybody, always. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Maureen.
I think Megan was first and then Teresa.
Hey, Tegan, thanks for being here this morning. I'm glad that the city is starting this work. And so I guess my question is about, so the coalition, and I'll just be like, I'm also one of the co-chairs for Tacoma DSA. And so we've often been supporting the coalition, like speak up about some needs on the ground for a while now. Is that going to be considered in your evaluation around the strategic strategy? Because the coalition has done a lot of really thoughtful work to really naming the things for a while now, and which they see on the ground as like huge issues. So it's that work, I guess, and that feedback's been ongoing, and I would like that to be considered in this strategy making. Like one thing we've been like safe parking networks, had like sweep policy, especially right now as like especially with folks that have COVID, they shouldn't be swept. That's been a question that's come up. But also like bathroom access, and also like safe campgrounds. Like there's been lists that have been formed and fleshed out that I would just advocate that the city takes that into consideration when making this strategy. And also the work of that MDC report should be centered in this, because those come from folks directly experiencing unsheltered homelessness in our community.
Thanks for sharing that, Megan. I think that I'm not closed off to any feedback. I think everything is valuable and necessary, and there has been a lot of work, and so I appreciate you highlighting those as well. Absolutely.
Teresa.
Teresa, yeah.
Hi, Tegan. It's very good to see you. And a couple things. One is that I recognize the city is not just starting this, that the city has been involved in trying to address homelessness for quite a while. And I saw the summit as a real step, a little bit of a different step of the city, at least the mayor working directly with this organization in a formal way. And I feel like what you're proposing is a little bit more structure of that. And I think that's a great idea. I think it'll be really helpful. But I also was going to say a little bit the same thing that Megan did. There's been a lot of work done to gather information. The League of Women Voters has done some things. MDC has done some things. The Democratic Megan's group has done some things, and there are other, I'm hoping that you'll have someone on staff who will be able to gather these things that are either in process or already completed to add to the fray. And then if you have a real desire to hear from people who are experiencing homelessness, I don't know if you've considered using something like the Counting Us program, because that is one way to actually, there are a lot of people in this room who have one-on-one contact with people who are experiencing homelessness. They may or may not consider doing that, but if you want feedback, I'm trying to think of how else you would really get that, because how are they going to know you're, you know, it's not, when you're surviving, you're not necessarily out there looking for ways to contribute to the information flow. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Counting Us is a great app. I've used it before with like the point in time count. That's what you're speaking of, right, Teresa? Yeah. So the survey 123, I think is similar to that in ways of building out a survey and getting that feedback. So I greatly appreciate that.
So would that be something that someone who was doing outreach could take the survey 123 on their phone and do the same thing they do with Counting Us?
Absolutely.
All right. Sorry, I mentioned it then.
No,
you already
it's
are
so
on it.
helpful. I mean, we need to know all the tools we have available, right?
Colin, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, one, it's great to see you, Tegan. Always.
Hi.
I just was curious. I appreciate the presentation, and you kind of touched on a lot of stuff, but I'm just wondering if there's any priority in the city talks right now with just the encampments, the visible encampments, and really related to the encampments. I think there's this, I appreciate that there's this basically a pause in place where nothing's being swept and we're trying to let people stay. But I think what we all see that's not happening is, if you're going to do that, awesome. But just like anyone else, these people need somewhere to put their garbage. I think we've all heard about the purple bag project, which seems like somewhat of a step possibly in the right direction. But I think the reality is, anybody who's going down Yakima, anybody who's going down Puyallup Avenue, anybody who's going down 6th Ave by Evergreen College, is this trash that is growing and growing, and it's not fair to the community, which includes the individuals out there in the tents and also those poor neighbors also. So I'm just curious if there's any priority or any push around that, because we're really not hearing anything about that. I'm curious. And then, yeah, the other stuff, just, kind of along with that, really echoing what was just previously said by Teresa and others, the reports, the stuff that's already out there. We need to reinvent the wheel on a lot of this. I think we know what to do, and I'm just curious and hopeful that that stuff is being at least brought out and reviewed as we move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to highlight. I'm glad so many people did, because there's so many resources out there in our community of work that's already been done. So I appreciate that. As for the cleanups, I know there's a lot of stuff about garbage and those things, Colin. I know they're talking about expanding possibly the purple bag program, and there's other things that are in the works. It's still infantile, so I don't want to get ahead of the work or letting council know those things. So I know it's definitely an issue and we're addressing it. On a side note to that though, I've been doing a lot of research about how to essentially collect data about encampments, which is really fascinating too. So there's a lot of work of figuring out how do we track them, how do we see the size of them and how they grow and the needs of the individuals. So we're doing a little different, I don't want to say different, it's like parallel work of figuring out how to support these encampments and see the way that they change and fluctuate and the needs in each individual one differently too. So I know we're looking at some ways to track and develop that data as well too, which I'm sure you'd probably be interested in. Because I think that's really important to understand how things fluctuate in areas, and we know things happen different seasonally around the city as well too. And I mean, the global pandemic has thrown us all for a loop of how this has impacted our work too. So I mean, it's staying nimble, staying flexible is really important in all this work. So when we know more about the garbage cleanup and those things, as things keep developing, we'll absolutely come back and let you know as soon as we know to.
Thank you, Tegan. I see Erica has her hand up, and then I know that to close us out, Garrett had something you wanted to say.
Thank you, Rob. Sorry, I have to walk away from the remote learning a little bit. Watch out, bud. So Colin, I just wanted to let you know there was a very heavy discussion about garbage removal at an encampments at Tuesday's council meeting. So if you have a chance to watch that, I would highly encourage it. And there's going to be a follow-up meeting on next Tuesday's council meeting to follow up on that conversation. So there has been a lot of focus on how the city wants to be innovative and responsive to that. So if you want to tune into that, and then you and I can chat more. If you have any other ideas, I would love that. And I also want to address, the presence of city staff. It has been challenging. A lot of us do have children at home, and we appreciate your guys' patience as we try to manage, the impacts of the pandemic. But once, we roll out and can have our children returning back to school, you will have our full commitment to be here every single Friday.
Thanks, Erica. Garrett?
I just had two quick requests. The first one is that this model of having a small group in the city kind of crafting a plan and then getting feedback isn't my favorite model. Like, I look at the way census work happened when the goal was to make sure we count everyone in the community. Like, step one was to create a stakeholder group that was everybody, right? LGBTQ community, people of color, everyone got together and they crafted the plan. And the city does this all the time as well with stakeholder groups. They bring everybody that they can, and then that group crafts the plan. So I challenge you to consider adjusting to that sort of model, right? If you want a plan that's really considering the BIPOC community, let's make sure that the BIPOC people are writing the plan, that they're not just being solicited for how does this plan sound, right? The nothing about us without us. And the second request is that you've sort of identified an interest in having an individual from the coalition connected in somehow. If that could get written out, I'm really unclear on how that would work, and actually unclear on the structure within the city doing the work. And I think it would be really helpful to have laid out who the people are at the city that are writing the plan, so that I can kind of understand where it's coming from. And again, I cannot stress more the idea that people experiencing homelessness can be part of the group writing the plan, not just people solicited for input.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate it.
Tegan, thanks so much for your time this morning. And if I'll remind you, if you have a chance, if you could drop the slideshow into the chat, that'd be great. There are a couple other questions that are in the chat, so if you have an opportunity to look at those, that would be great as well. I'm going to move on to the next item in our agenda, and that is to have, well, actually, I'll have Paula Anderson introduce this. If you could do that, Paula.
Sure. Thank you, Rob. We're going to hear a presentation from Bob Fry and UMC, which they're the organization that actually built our trailers, our shower trailer, our wash and dry trailer. They have all kinds of solutions. We've used two of their really sturdy hand washing stations at two of our safe parking locations. They're being very well received, and I just need to let you guys know that they're extremely community-minded group of people, and they're making it their priority to help the community through COVID. And I think, they're just a very creative group of people. And so I love the opportunity to introduce them. They're wonderful. So Bob.
Thanks, Paula. Appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that. Rob, can I do a screen share?
I can share the slides if you want, or you can do it either way.
Oh, that's great. Go ahead and.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I will.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably not familiar with UMC, but I'll try to go through the early part of this really quick so we can get to the things that you guys will probably have an interest in. But so just a quick introduction about UMC. So we're going to do a little introduction, a little bit on company history and kind of what we're doing right now, especially relative to the homeless community, and then why we're doing it. So next slide. So some of you may have heard of UMC in the past, formerly known as University Mechanical. So we've got a long history. We've actually been in this market. We're a homegrown company. We've been here for just over 100 years. So we are, by kind of our initial work with mechanical contractors. So we've worked on projects like the Space Needle and installed plumbing and piping and HVAC and building control systems. And so you might think about all these types of projects, Fred Hutch, Columbia Center, all of these buildings are projects we've worked on. Go to the next slide. And additional projects, we've done a lot of work at SeaTac Airport. We built the Brightwater sewage treatment plant, the Amazon spheres downtown. Go ahead to the next one. And so you might be thinking, well, why would you guys be interested in a mechanical contractor and what we're doing? So the thing about our company, and Paula touched on this, is we're pretty innovative, and we're always thinking about ways that we can not only help ourselves and how we build buildings, but we think a lot about the community and ways that we can get more involved in solving problems, because we've got a lot of innovative people trying to solve problems that we see in the community. And so all of those services you see there are things that we traditionally have done. But the thing that's probably really important is that manufacturing division. So we're a little bit different from a typical mechanical contractor because we do manufacture products, both for ourselves internally for use on job sites and for use in constructing jobs and buildings, and then also to sell. So let's go on to the next one. So as part of, actually, let's just move right into the products just to save some time. Let's go to the next slide. So our manufacturing division has been making products for use within our buildings, for our job sites and for our crews that are on job sites for a lot of years. And our company's always been really focused on safety and innovation. But the COVID crisis has really kind of refocused our manufacturing efforts, trying to kind of keep up with what's going on. And so we've morphed, and we're not just making products for ourselves now. We started making products to help solve problems out in the community. The next one. So what we've done is we've always made hand wash stations for our job sites, but we started to see the crisis coming and had customers starting to ask us for ways to get more portable and better options for hand washing out in the community, out at schools and homeless encampments, and all types of situations, whether it's farm workers, kind of the whole range of applications out there. And so we started our engineering team. We got to work on designing some things. So this is kind of our base model. It's an economy series, we call it. And this thing can either be a 120 volt plug into the wall, or it could be a battery operated. It's completely standalone. So got a couple 12-gallon tanks in there, fresh water and water. And you can basically put this thing anywhere. You can put it in a library, you can put it in an office, you can put it in a classroom, basically anywhere that you want to have hand washing, and it's all completely self-contained. So the next slide. So then we've got kind of our standard series of single sink hand washing stations. And Paula actually has one of these that they carry in their RV as part of their one of their programs. So these can be either just ambient, just cold water stations, or they can have a hot water tank in them. Pretty much everything we manufacture is a heavy aluminum frame, powder coated. They've got a really nice look to them, and they're designed to basically last for like a 30-year time period. And again, these can be standalone, or we also have models that plug in and connect to a pressurized water source. So the next one. So this is also a model that that New Hope Resources is using. This one is kind of a dual, kind of a back-to-back hand washing station. And this one is designed to be close to a water supply, a power supply, and a drainage supply or a drainage connection. Although we do have a service cart available that makes this a completely standalone, where you could just have this sitting out kind of in the middle of an area with no services running off the service cart. But this is a really popular model as well. We put a lot of these into schools, put some into homeless encampments. So this is kind of our standard product that we really started with years ago. So this is a hand wash station primarily for construction sites, super heavy duty. But you can see that we've got the 6-foot social distancing between the washing stations there. And these are just very models coming down our production line. Next one. So we also make a larger version that's back to back. So you've got four sinks and 4 faucets, and pretty much everything that we manufacture is all hands-free. We're trying to eliminate diseases and viruses, and so all the faucets, all the paper towels, that type of thing, it's always hands-free operation whenever we can. Next one. So I mentioned the service carts. If we want to make any of those previous hand wash stations just a standalone without connection to water or drainage, we can do that with this little service cart. You basically just connect the service cart up to the fresh water supply and the drain water, and you start out with a tank full of 35 gallons worth of fresh water, and you wash hands. You can probably get at least 300 hand washes in one of these service carts. And then when you've exhausted the water supply, the gray water tank is filled up, you can just roll the cart to a nearby location to drain the gray water and refill the fresh water, go back, connect up, and you're off and rolling again. We sold a lot of these into schools. So the one that Paula talked the most about here is what we call our Oasis series, accessible, ADA accessible wash station. So this was developed with Seattle Public Utilities. They saw the products that we were putting out into the market, and they wanted something specifically for homeless encampments. They were looking at creating a program to put hand wash stations out in these homeless encampments. And the requirements are super heavy duty, had to be no connections to fresh water, had to be no connections to a drain or electricity, and it had to be able to operate for a long time before having to be serviced. So somebody didn't have to go out and refill tanks on it and drain tanks on a daily basis. So this thing is designed with 2 100-gallon tanks, one for fresh water, one for gray water. It just has a 12-volt battery on board like you would have for a trolling motor on a little boat. And that battery lasts for anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So this thing is a pretty bulletproof design, and Seattle Public Utilities now has 15 of these in various locations as part of a program. And then Paula and New Hope, they've got 3 of these at their safe parking sites. The initial prototypes that we designed for Seattle Public Utilities, they actually tested these in the chop zone, which is like the worst environment that you could possibly have trying to test a product in. But these things work flawlessly, super reliable, super heavy duty. And at the end of the day, the problem we're trying to solve for them was the COVID situation, and as well as a hepatitis outbreak that was happening in the homeless population. So these have been really popular with them. So we have another product. This one has just been recently introduced. So being able to supply water to various sites and populations. So this is basically a portable water bottle filling unit. So if somebody had a plastic bottle or a container already, essentially it's a sensor operated bottle filler. It's portable on wheels. It works just like a little hand truck. Essentially, as long as you've got a water supply that we can connect up to and a drain with a couple of hoses, then this provides a refrigerated water supply in remote locations. So the other thing Paula mentioned is one of their programs at New Hope is wanted to deliver laundry services in the field right where the services were needed. And so we got to work and designed a laundry trailer with 4 stacked washers and dryers, onboard tank for holding all the fresh water to supply everything, and a gray water tank that everything drains into. So they could basically roll up to a site, not have any connections to power, water, or drain, and they can do laundry for quite a long period, throughout a day, and then pack up the trailer at the end of the day, take it to another site to drain the tanks and refill, and then they're off and rolling into the next site. Next one. So also part of their program at New Hope was the need for a portable shower trailer. So again, they had a design in mind. They wanted 2 standard shower stalls and 1 ADA shower stall. So you can see the 2 doors side by side there. Designed this unit with the 2 shower stalls standard right there. And then the mechanical room that houses all the pumps and the hot water tank and all the supply and return tanks. All of that's kind of in that middle section over the back wheels. And then the far back door is the ADA accessible wash station or shower. So next one. So the last product that I wanted to talk about for a second, we've also seen a need for portable restrooms, and people are really interested in restrooms, portable restrooms, where it's not like a typical porta potty where you've got just a tank that sits underneath the toilet seat that you have to service every day or every week or whatever interval you've got. So this is a portable restroom that we designed. It can be on wheels. We've got a wheel kit for it as well. But essentially, this just connects into a drain pipe on site and a fresh water supply. And when you open the door, it's a complete restroom inside there. There's a urinal. There's a standard ceramic toilet, really nice toilet. It's a macerator design, so it basically pumps all of the waste from the toilet through a 3/4 inch line. So you don't have to have big piping or big lines or anything. And we've sold these on construction sites, and we're getting them into some other sites right now for testing, but you can build them with a hand wash station on the side, a lot of flexibility. Our partner on this product, you guys may know of a company called Pallet Shelter. So Pallet Shelter is working with us on the actual building itself, and then we do all of the plumbing work inside there. So we've got a partnership with Pallet in building this product. So that's what we wanted to show you and talk a little bit about what we're up to. As an organization, we're really focused on children and homelessness, and work with organizations like Child's Strive and Salvation Army, and also New Hope and others as well. But it's a big part of what we're about as an organization. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bob. So do we have any questions from the group?
I have a kind of technical question. I can think of places for that last toilet, but I don't know what this macerator thing is. Does that mean you don't have to connect to a septic system? You can connect to any kind of water drain?
We can, it has to connect to a septic or a sewage drain line. Yeah.
So you actually have to have a sewage drain line, but you don't need a big sewage pipe to go to it.
Correct. Yeah. And we can be up to about 150 feet away from the pipe connection. So we can run the 3/4 inch tube a long ways.
Okay, you answered my question. That's good. I envy the people that get to design these things. That looks like a fun thing to have a problem and try to solve. So thank you for coming in, and thank you for solving those problems and for coming and talking to us about it.
Yeah, we've had a really good time actually designing all these products and doing the prototyping and testing. It's been really exciting for the whole team.
Dwayne, you had a question in the chat. Do you want to ask that?
Sorry about that. Yes, I was just curious, Bob. I was wondering, what are your hiring practices, and would you be willing to hire from our population?
So we are a union employer. We're part of Local 32 and Local 66. So Local 32 plumbers and pipe fitters, and Local 66 sheet metal. And so pretty much all of our labor resources come from them. But the company that we work with, Pallet Shelter, in this partnership, they are a second chance employer. And so a lot of their folks that are building these shelters for us are homeless or have recently come out of incarceration or have addiction problems. And so that's definitely a potential, I think, through Pallet for sure.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You betcha.
Other questions for Bob before we move on to the next item in the agenda?
To add something real quick, Rob, my name is Kevin Parker and I'm also with UMC. And a couple of people mentioned relationships here in this meeting today. And as Bob referred to in our presentation, we have placed 15 of these at City of Seattle sites. And I have been at all 15 sites. And most of them are at homeless encampments. A couple are at St. Vincent de Paul and Northwest Harvest and Salvation Army sites, as well as Lake City Community Center. But certainly we would love an opportunity to just talk to, I think it was Sharon, regarding the new villages, the tribal villages, and wondering if they have talked to Pallet about that as well.
And then certainly would love to be involved with Tegan's project with the city of Tacoma. As I know, as Colin mentioned, there's lots of sites that need to be cleaned up. And just like Seattle, we would love to partner with them to help keep them clean and healthy with hand wash stations.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, so thank you again, Bob and Kevin, and thank you, Paula, for bringing this presentation to us. That's awesome.
Thank you, appreciate the time.
And I do have the PDF slides if people are interested. I can get them to Garrett so we can put them on the website as well. So the next item in our agenda, I'll hand it over to Valerie Knight from Pierce County Human Services to talk about the work to design an alternative temporary care center.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today. So I have a couple updates, but I'll start with the TCC. So as we have heard from our community partners, the TCC isn't quite working out very well for folks experiencing homelessness or who have very specific needs. And so I have had meetings with Department of Emergency Management, Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, who are quickly becoming my closest friends. I feel like I message them more than anyone else, and all of the shelter providers, as well as the outreach teams. And so collectively, it was like, you know, we really need another alternative option because the TCC, A, isn't going to last forever, and B, just isn't as available to this population. And so we started with collecting information of actual names, specific circumstances that have happened so that we can really drill down to what the areas of concern are. And then I had an amazing meeting with Colin to learn from best practices, what worked, what didn't work. I have met with Louise on what worked and what didn't work with folks when Vallejo was running 2 sites, because we did in the very, very beginning. So if everybody thinks of Groundhog Day, March 2020, which feels like forever ago, we actually had 2 sites in downtown Tacoma that were non-TCC sites, specifically for folks experiencing homelessness. One had 0 people, and the other had maybe 4 or 5. So Colin and I have been brainstorming, like, what would it look like to be able to have an opportunity for folks to go in, but maybe isn't open all the time, right? But it can pop open real quick. Maybe it's hotels, maybe it's a small hotel or motel with like 8 rooms, something that would only need to be between 5 and 10, right? Like that's the max we see at a time, but something to where a shelter at 11 p.m. can get someone in, a shelter at 4 a.m. can get someone in, and there isn't this 3-hour process for intake. That is a requirement of TCC. TCC is funded by the FEMA, and so they have very specific requirements and very, very specific thresholds. And so we have to really work through all of those variances. And so still more conversations happening, but I need data. I need data to be able to say, here is the problem. Here is the actual numbers. Here are their names because they are asking for that. And then where does that go from there? And so we are looking at, I see the chats. Thank you for both of that. Where should we go and what does this look like? And so we want to set the shelters up for success and make sure that they have options, all of those random hours, immediate response, and they aren't having to wait to 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday to get someone into the TCC. Colin and I spent some time also talking about the general cost of it. Like, if the health department's engaged, does that require, okay, so Garrett, Sherry, and Colin, send me your data. I have no data from you 3, so send it to me, send it to me, send it to me. I have 5 people on my list right now. I am happy to report the 45, the 12, the 3, and the 5. Great, put it on my data, okay? Doesn't exist if I don't have a report. So send it to me. I will look for emails by Tuesday. So yes, and then we can maybe create a bigger project. The other thing I'll say is that these funds are the funds that are out right now. The notice of funding availability specifically allow for isolation quarantine sites. They specifically allow for hotels and motels. This is ESGCV funding, which is emergency shelter grant, coronavirus response funding. That Q&A session, the bidders conference, is on Wednesday. So if you have questions, I'll pop that link in here in a minute. But you know, those are eligible resources. So you could, as a community, vend a provider, pick a location, apply for funding, and set it up yourselves without having to go specifically through me or the health department. But I need more data because, as I said, I have 4 or 5 people on my list right now, and the health department is going to have a conversation about the data I can provide. So I really need that information that you all have. I've asked for it a couple times, so I'll do a public ask again. And I appreciate everyone who's made comments in the notes. So Jan Rumbeck, you too. You know my email. You know my home phone number. Send it to me. I need the data because then we can show this is the need. These are the folks, and this is what we need to have. And the health department and Department of Emergency Management are then on board to help find even more funding, per their own words, to help create the system. So that's where we are now. Still very quickly working through it. When we do government updates, I will talk about a very robust rental assistance program that's coming down the pipeline. CSG is eligible. Why can't we use funding from FEMA? ESG is a guarantee payback. FEMA is a maybe payback. So that's up to a provider if they want to take the risk of a FEMA maybe getting paid back, whereas an ESG, you know you're going to get reimbursed as long as it's eligible. And FEMA is out of my wheelhouse. I am not the one currently responsible, nor am I researching FEMA dollars. So not it. Not it. One thing I've learned at the county, if I ask too many questions, it becomes my project. So I am not asking about FEMA, just so you are all aware. So yes, Colin, I see your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, and so I think we can definitely share between us. We can share some of those numbers. I guess the clarifying question, just I think that'd be helpful. And I think the challenge also is those were the numbers back in, March. So are you also wanting numbers like what do we think we have going on out there right now? And then if that, which I think we want, and then I'm just curious to the group, how would we go? Anybody have any ideas from outreach of how we go about getting those? I guess we have some of them from these anecdotal stories that we're hearing about turnaways, but I'm wondering if there's any other, it's just, I think it's a really challenging to get these numbers. And I think everybody knows that, but I'm just curious if there's any ideas on how to.
I can speak just for our shelters. We've been in continual outbreak status. What the health department deems as outbreak, even though it's only been 1, maybe 2 positives each week. And we have to send not only the individual who's positive, but the 4 people on the immediate surrounding perimeter. So we're estimating, 5 per week at our one facility. Going out, I mean, I don't know how we capture that data with outreach teams. Is there a survey? I mean, what do we do? Go in and say, who has COVID and have you gone to the temporary care site? That's the challenge.
Yeah. And then Sherry, for your 5 per week, are they going to the isolation quarantine center? Are you quarantining them? Because I know Mike had mentioned y'all have a quarantine area at one of your locations. So you're technically quarantining them yourself?
So we quarantine them when we find out about the positive and while we're awaiting transport. So the majority of folks have been given access to the temporary care facility. It hasn't always been easy. There's been some challenges getting them in, but because we don't have a true quarantine area, they have to walk out of the facility or the quarantine area to go to the bathroom to eat food. And so they have to still come in and mix with Gen Pop. So we don't have the ability to truly quarantine on site.
Okay, so you have a sort of quarantine location, but then you've had success getting folks into the isolation quarantine center.
Yep.
Okay. Great. And then to answer your question, so the reason for the names is because there were some initial complaints to the health department that were like, John Smith couldn't even get in the isolation quarantine center, and then they would look up John Smith, and John Smith had never gone through their process. And so we need to match the data on their end, as well as then give stories of these are the folks that we talked to, these are the percentages, and this is what our data looks like to be projected, which y'all can do, right? Like you don't need the health department's permission to set up an isolation quarantine center with ESG dollars. Y'all don't. Y'all could actually set it up yourselves. And we have the funding for that. Would we want you to partner with them? Of course, right? Like that's a normal thing. You should always partner with the health department if you're talking anything medical or pandemic related. But we wouldn't need to necessarily go through all of their perimeters and requirements because they aren't funding the project. If you want additional dollars, then yes. So yeah, and Jan, thank you. Yeah, any data we can have to show the need, then we can actually create the solution. As of right now, what they're getting is a complaint about this person, or this person says a whole bunch of people, but we need to have actual numbers and data to back this up so that we can then push it forward through the system. So if you could get me that, that would be fantastic. I'm going to encourage you all to figure out a way to partner, figure out a site that it can go to. Colin's got some brilliant ideas, and then figure out who can maybe provide services. I'm not going to throw Sherry's name out there, but Sherry's down at the bottom of my screen. So what it looks like, because it's worked in the past, right? So that you can all do without us. And anytime you take the government out of it, it's the better, right? Yes, Colin.
I would just throw in the last thing, one, thank you. The last thing, just Richard Berghammer was messaging me, and I think he makes a really great point when we're thinking about this, especially when we're thinking about people that are out in camps or not maybe in the shelter like Sherry's shelter is. One, it's placing them at some sort of isolation or quarantine, but two, we got to be thinking about their belongings too. And I know in setting up the Tacoma Ave site, that was an extremely big challenge for us at that time, and we were able to do it. And luckily we didn't have a whole lot of people, but I just think that's once again, and we had a plan in place, which was going to be, we were going to do a secure storage site right next to it in the parking lot. So I think that's just another thing as we talk about this, we need to have in mind that these individuals are going to have stuff, and wherever they go, whether it's, I don't know what the TCC is doing, if they have a plan in place for when people come in with stuff, but I think that's a really good point made by Richard. So I just wanted to share it.
Yeah, that's great. And then Sean, thank you for the suggestion, and pets, right? Because a lot of folks have their pets, and that's my work experience in outreach. They weren't given the pets up. It didn't matter what the housing solution was. So thank you, Sean, for bringing that up. I appreciate it. If anybody wants to chat about this longer, if you have suggestions, if you have concerns, if you have data, feel free, send me an email, call me, share. I am available. If you need time specifically, you want to get on my calendar, send me some available dates and times. I will make stuff work, and then we'll go from there. So I appreciate that very much. And then I will wait for government updates, Rob, to share about the ever-growing rental assistance program.
Actually, why don't you go ahead and roll right into that now, because that's the next item on our agenda. So
great. So everybody take a deep breath. All right. So we know we're getting 25 million. Well, we got just over 20 million from the federal government, from the Department of the Treasury, directly for rental assistance. Okay. That's in the bank account. We are setting it up as we speak. We are working very diligently. It can pay up to 12 months of rental assistance and utilities, potentially up to 15. It goes all the way back to March 13th, 2020. Okay, that we already know. Then we found out we are also getting dollars directly from Department of Commerce, which are getting money from the Department of Treasury. We project that to be 25 million. Okay, so we're up to 45 million now. So in case anybody's doing math, 2.5 million of that or so, about 10%, has to go to youth and young adult specific already. So we already had a meeting with our youth and young adult providers who are funded through Office of Homeless Youth. So all of that money portals will come here, and the applications will come through our portal. We will refer anybody in the household 24 and under to REACH. So all that's been worked out. And then we found out yesterday that the governor is going to be making an announcement for even more rental assistance dollars that will have to be spent by June. We suspect that will come out. It was supposed to be announced yesterday. Now they're expecting it to come out around Thursday. We have no idea what the final number looks like, but we hear rumors of 160 million statewide. Calculating based on what happened, I know Mike Yoder's like, oh my Jiminy. Yes. And so our portion could be anywhere from 10 to 15 million. And we know they're writing it in the budget for the new biennium for approximately 800 million in rental assistance to be spent in 2 years. So, yes. So we are very diligently working on how do we get all of those dollars out the door, how to make sure everybody's meeting the requirements. Our NOFA is closed for the rental assistance. Thankfully, we're a little ahead of the game on that. And our application evaluation committee meets on Tuesday to make a final decision on the original projected 40 million. But we are just moving forward as fast as we can. So everybody just know that we are working very hard. We are in full collaboration with the city, who has been amazing partners, because some of our dollars will have to be outside city of Tacoma limits, and some of our dollars can be all of Pierce County, including city of Tacoma limits. And so we're just making sure everybody gets the appropriate referrals, all the fund sources are appropriately allocated and out the door and gone by December. As of right now, all the Treasury dollars will not include hotels and motels. We are still waiting for them to update their frequently asked questions. I check it about 12 times a day, so I'm hoping to catch it as soon as it opens. We do not know what the state's budget will allow. They did allow hotels and motels last time. I don't know if they're going to continue with that. If they do, we will implement those immediately. So you'll be the first to know. I'll send out an email to the full coalition as soon as we have those policies and procedures in place. And I want you all to wish our applicants for our rental assistance luck, because it may be a little bigger than they thought and maybe a little faster. So that's where we are for that. As Jenny had mentioned, any questions on rental assistance before I move to the next thing? No? Okay. I look for like the normal folks who have questions, but I don't see any. Okay, great. I'm working very closely with vaccinations. As you may have heard, we had 50 vaccinations available for folks over the age of 65 in shelter. We were able to, with the very hard work of all of our shelter providers, 40 folks were vaccinated on that Saturday. So that's a huge win. They are all set up for their second vaccine. They all went to Safeway Hilltop. So they just a short little trip. So that's all being coordinated through Safeway, came directly to us with some vaccinations available. So big shout out to them and to all of our shelter providers. We also already have meetings set up for vaccination training for staff, train the trainer type situation, so they can start alleviating the fears. And so that's on the 23rd. If you're interested in participating, let me know. It's at 3 to 4 p.m. The health department, we've already invited all the outreach teams. We've already invited all of the shelter providers. But if anyone else wants to come, you're welcome to come and listen. The health department also does have those vaccine open public forum conversations and training. So I encourage you all to attend those if you don't want to wait till the 23rd of this month. And so all of that is in the works. And we are currently just recently announced our ESG CV. So we funded some, anyone who expanded their shelter due to COVID was eligible to apply for extra dollars. Everyone got funded. Everyone got funded. And so all those dollars are out the door. And so we are just working diligently to be transparent, to be honest, to listen to your feedback and to respond appropriately. So that is where we currently are at the county. And it's going to be an exhausting, fun year. So I look forward to it and I need your help. I'm going to need your help, all of you, every single person. So HHP, which is our homeless housing program, will go into automatic renewal, which is great news. We did just hear from HUD, Continuum of Care funding is also going to be an automatic renewal, which is great news. And we heard from HUD that any day now, they will be opening the youth homelessness demonstration program, which they've been saying that since November. So I don't know what they consider any day now, but I'm tired of waiting. So I wish they would just do it, which will be funding for homeless and at-risk youth and young adults throughout Pierce County. It brought about $4 million to Snohomish. So we will be applying again this year. I don't know how you fit all of that in a 40-hour work week, but we'll figure it out. So if you have interest in any of those things, let me know and I will take all the help I can get. Those are all my updates, Rob.
Thank you, Valerie. I don't think that's nearly enough.
It's been a busy 5 days.
Yeah, I think you're ready for the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
as
man.
Garrett says, maybe it's time to hire some more staff.
I know they're having conversations about that as well. Yes, John Barbie and Heather Moss and Jeff Rogers are absolutely having those conversations. Yeah. So we're only allowed, we can't work more than 10 hours in a day.
Thanks, Valerie. So I'm going to turn the floor over to, I'm not sure if it's going to be Rihanna or Michael from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department to offer some updates.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob. And thanks, Valerie, for sharing a lot of those updates with us. Did a lot of the work for me. So yes, I shared in the chat, we have some community vaccine presentations to just kind of alleviate some of that hesitancy, explain more of the safety and kind of folks at ease. Great information for everyone to know, and then also good information to share with folks who might be hesitant on some of that information as well. We have that train the training session on the 23rd. So please bring your questions. We'll answer a lot of frequently asked questions around vaccine hesitancy and safety, but we also want to answer any questions that you have. We'll send those up to our team and get those answered straight away. very happy to have Jenny here as well. We'll be collaborating with her on kind of working on the healthcare coordination side of things and working out the more logistics on how some of the vaccine processes distribution is going to be working with homeless population and service providers, shelter providers, and yeah, it's great. I'm happy to have her here. She's great. And just as a reminder, right now with the vaccine distribution still being in phase 1B, tier 1, any of your eligible staff who are 65 years and older or 50 years and older living in multi-generational households, they're eligible to get the vaccine. So we'd love to get anyone who's eligible for the vaccine right now to get vaccinated. So yeah, and we're happy to help explain any of that processes or anything like that. I will share my information, my contact information in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything on that. And that is all of my updates. I'll open up to Jenny if she has any question or any updates or things she wanted to add, if she's still on the call.
I'm on mute, sorry. Still, you'd think after a year of working this way, we would all, be able to mute ourselves, but I'm still struggling. Hi, everyone. Jenny Shuppy again. Thanks, Michael. Michael kind of covered like the basics about the information sessions coming up, which we're really excited about connecting with you all. And Michael and Rihanna are going to continue to attend this meeting weekly, and then I'll come as needed to give you more information about our vaccine rollout planning and answer questions directly. But any questions you have specifically about vaccines, you can put to Michael and Rihanna, and they'll come back to me and my team, and we're working really closely, communicating every day about this. Just want to, take the opportunity to assure everyone that this is a priority for the health department, getting vaccines in arms of folks who are experiencing homelessness, both sheltered and unsheltered. And so I'm working with our team, with Michael and Rihanna in community engagement, working with Valerie, meeting with her regularly, meeting with the shelter providers group and the outreach groups. And we're working in an environment where vaccine is very limited right now, unfortunately, but we are committed to advocating for this community, and just wanted you to kind of see my face and get to know me a little bit. If you have questions like Michael brought up about eligibility, because folks are eligible now, we are working to try and in that space of limited vaccine, we are working to try and advocate for your folks to try and get connected with opportunities. So please reach out to us. And what else? Yeah, I will just continue. We're committed to communicating with this group. And as I said, we're working regularly with other smaller groups, but I will come back and we will continue to communicate our proposed plans and seek input as we get things planned and ready to roll out some vaccine clinics and opportunities. So thank you so much. I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Jenny. Tegan, did you have any other City of Tacoma updates you wanted to offer during the government updates, or are you covered? Putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot. I think that's all that I have for the moment.
Okay.
Erica didn't give me any other ones, and if she's not here, I think we're probably good then.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
So let's move on. I wanted to allow Bill Fay to talk about his poetry project a little bit more. So if you could take the floor, Bill.
Thank you. Really honored to be here and opportunity to speak about my project. I recently completed one for Aid Northwest. Here's the product from that. I don't know if you can see it. And to do that project, I interviewed detainees at the ICE Center, and I also did about 100 hours of historical research before I wrote the poems. They used the book as a fundraising incentive, and they had their most successful fundraiser ever and broke records. We'll never know how much the book contributed. There's only a handful of books left, but we're still promoting them in awareness fashion. I have a couple of book readings with them, and we'll also go out on Radio Tacoma promoting the book, but more than that, promoting the fine work of Aid Northwest. So I was grousing around thinking, gee, I need another major project. This last one was quite successful. It was very exciting. And I happen to know Larry Sequist by way of his campaign efforts. And he let me know about your organization here. That would be the umbrella organization to end homelessness, Tacoma, Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness. So I was fortunate enough to have a few minutes with Garrett and also with Kevin to tell them about the idea I had for my next project. So my next project, if I can have some help from you folks, would be to do somewhere between 15 to 20 poems and accompany them with photography, and then put that together in a chapbook, and then make that available both for awareness to the organizations that participate in the coalition, but also to use it in their fundraising. We found that it was pretty effective to just put a bit of the poetry and like the cover of the book on the fundraising site, and so that people could click through it and actually read some of the poetry. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's the concept. The timeline is about, if I can get the information I need, probably in 4 or 5 months, there would be a product available. And I look toward the umbrella organization, I call it that for lack of a better term, that would be the Tacoma Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness, as kind of a clearinghouse. So the idea would be the product would be created, it would be provided to that organization and then disseminated to other organizations. Now here's where I need your help. And I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible, in that I need information. I need to understand more about homelessness. I need to understand a little bit more about the major segments of what organizations do. And I need to have an opportunity, if possible, to interview volunteers and interview homelessness folks. Every person has a story. In that story is the emotional impact of what they've gone through, where they were, where they are now, and the expectation and hope of where they can go. And that's the story I want to give. I have sent an email to the gal's name here. Oh, there it is. Patty Ramos. I went to her site and I took a look at her Facebook site. There were some very, very powerful photographs there and some very powerful stories. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'll put my email address in the chat, and then I'm going to encourage organizations to contact me. Then all I would ask is an opportunity to pair with a volunteer and go and learn about individual people that are homeless, learn about the volunteers' effort, learn about that organization's effort. Every organization that is involved in this will get a specific acknowledgement in the book. And they will be part of the foreword where I discuss the development of the book. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm sure there are questions about it, and I'll throw a little bit out of my credentials. I'm a retired program manager, but in the last year, I've gotten 18 pieces published internationally and nationally, regionally, and have generated this book. This book took 360 man hours. It was all free. I work basically for free. My labor is free. I have some discussions about some compensation for the actual printing of the book. But that's it. The financial obligation is minimal. It's the information. It's the stories. It's the power of those stories. Okay, I'm going to throw in one more thing. I got it here. Okay, so I could give you a sample from the book, but I actually wrote a homelessness poem. It'll probably show my naivety and ignorance as to what you people really go through and what the people on the street really go for. It's in the form of a classified. In the classifieds, derelict writer of sonnets and medieval ballads, holds degrees in whiskey and buttered rum, lectures in Shakespeare and Disney songs, while dreaming of anything better than this dark doorway, a dusty retreat in search of my sharing, a broken glass neighborhood of dumpster denizens, cracked barber poles, weed rifled sidewalks, dead calico cats of conscience. But I digress. A professor without a classroom, graduate of the stairwells, singer of modern madrigals, will willingly accept anyone called hope. That's my
Thank you, Bill.
presentation.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Bill? Teresa.
I just had a thought as you were talking, Bill. First of all, it's very generous of you, and you're obviously a gifted poet, and that's it's a very generous offer. I wonder if you would consider including some poems that are written by people with life experience of homelessness along with your poetry, like a side-by-side sort of thing, just as for two reasons. One is that that's there are a lot of creative people who don't have many ways to be published, and the other is that it gives a different, you're talking about wanting to gain some experience, and that would be one way of bringing that in another way. It's just a thought. It's not it's a thought.
That's an interesting thought. One thing it does lend is it lends a level of authenticity to the publication that it might not have, and could lend a level of gravitas to it that it wouldn't necessarily have. The working title is The Hymns of the Homeless. So that's a very thought-provoking idea, Teresa. If I got it right.
Yeah, okay. You did. Yeah, Bill, if you could put your contact information in the chat so that people can reach out. I think there's going to be a number of folks who'd be interested in talking with you.
Okay, thank you very much. I assure you this, no matter how big the tidal wave of people just desperately wanting a poet to go out and help them is, I will make sure that I respond to each and every outreach, and I will be the least trouble that I can be as possible. You folks are doing the important job. I just want to make it more accessible to more people.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm going to move on in our agenda. Colin, can you offer some safe parking updates?
Yes, I can. Still have just the 2 sites going. Both are active right now. We have openings at both sites. The Tacoma one is completely open, basically empty right now. We're waiting on one referral that's supposed to make it there today, but I haven't heard anything back. I've been shooting some emails or just some messages on the side to some outreach workers to see if they have anyone. That one is for families. We have a lot of every school district has families, and they're just trying to track them down, and they're hopeful that as the families as a lot of them have younger children, so as they come back into school, a lot are coming back into school last week and this week, so they're thinking that there may be a better opportunity to actually connect with the families, because it's been challenging, I guess, to this point. So yeah, we have openings at the Tacoma site. We actually have a third site that is a resident who's just trying to do something on the side. So I don't really know what's going on with that. The South Hill site is packed. We still have openings, a couple openings, because people have been moving on. We actually have 3 people from that site that have now been housed. We have a family, which was a real quick, they stayed for like 2 days. We had a couple that went to Pierce County just on their own. They kind of just were waiting, and I reported that last week. And then this week we had an individual. So, and he went back up to King County. He got a job when he was at the site, and then he's working down at in the port. So he was able to move somewhere, I think just on the edge of northeast Tacoma, but in King County. So he just reported that back to me. So all 3 of those or 2 of those individuals were enrolled in coordinated entry, along with, we have a total of 8 enrollments in coordinated entry, which is awesome. 2 of those individuals were enrolled, though I don't think the housing came through coordinated entry. I'm pretty sure it didn't. We have Greater Lakes Mental Health is coming out every Friday. So I just got a message from Trish from Greater Lakes. She's going to be out at the site to talk to a couple new residents that just moved in on the South Hill site. So, and we've had really no issues. We had one camper that had a son show up in a car, and he brought like 4 of his friends in their cars also. So it was a good conversation with church staff, myself, and that individual to offer options for him to come to the site. He was not interested in doing the paperwork, so his family's really they held it down really good and kind of scolded him, and he has not been back. That same couple actually has 2 vehicles, which is, there's a lot of unique things from the pilot program that we're learning. So we kind of figured like, oh, okay, yeah, 2, I guess I didn't think about that. So they park a car and then they have a van. So we're learning. So that's something that was not on my radar at all. There's also, we're learning with people really want to put stuff outside of their vehicles. And I get it because they have a lot of stuff. So that's really showing to be, I won't say a challenge, but it's a thing. And but I really strongly feel that, one, we need storage places, and the church is actually helping. We're transitioning to do that at the South Hill Baptist Church. They got some Rubbermaids, which is great. But we need some storage is going to be a thing for sure. As far as potential new sites, still really positive stuff with TCC. Just waiting to follow up with their president. I thought I was going to be presenting to him this week, but I have not heard anything, so I'm guessing it got pushed to next week. Jeffrey just let me know, and Jeffrey, feel free to jump in. There's a new church, St. Matthew's in Browns Point, which is interested, I guess. So I'll let Jeffrey talk to that. But then just the same, Bellarmine still we're just waiting. We're waiting on the other churches. I think there is some hope that Jeffrey's made some contact and engagements in Lakewood too. Would really like to get a church from Lakewood on board. And if anybody has any connections to Sumner, there was an ask for Sumner churches, and I've reached out to a couple of the big churches there, and I just have not heard anything back. So I don't know if Paula's still on the line, or anyone else that maybe. Sumner, I think, would be a great place to connect with, because from what I hear, there's a lot of people in vehicles, and there's some stuff kind of off the radar that's already happening there. But yeah, that's about it. I would say things are going well. I really want to get people into that Tacoma site. So, if you don't know, all you got to do is I'll put my number in the chat on the side, but just call me. You just have to call me with referrals, and then we can go from there. So thank you. If there's any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks so much. And it's great to hear families have moved on to housing from the first site. So that's awesome. Maureen, you want to do a brief advocacy update?
I'll do a really quick one. So Valerie, you don't want to listen, because in the Biden relief bill, and now the Senate, this is national, the Senate has now started the budget reconciliation process, which is probably how this is going to happen. There is another probably $25 billion for rental assistance, and probably $6 billion in ESG, and possibly a ton of money for housing choice vouchers. And following that will be the next Biden bill, which possibly will really expand the housing choice vouchers. So everybody get a good night's sleep, because it's going to come, I think. Those of you who work directly with clients, the stimulus checks should be out in the $600 ones. They probably came as the preloaded debit card. If you have questions, need help, contact me or Teresa. But in the Biden package that's moving right now, there are $1,400 stimulus checks. And so if your clients do not yet have a bank account of some sort, we have time to help you set those up. So they're not walking around with $1,400 if that passes, and they're not spending a ton of money on fees to be able to use these preloaded debit cards. It was at a state level, as we are meeting, Just Cause is sitting in committee in executive session, and I don't know if it's passed out or not. And but we did scramble this week to get folks to sign on from the coalition to sign on to the Pierce County delegation to move that bill out of committee this morning. And we discovered that we need a better way to target people who can rapidly sign on for their organizations. Because I think a lot of people don't have that ability within their organization. So we're going to try and refine that a little, but this is the really good news, all right? Sometimes it takes a long time to move something forward. So I want to thank Al Radcliffe, who introduced the Chamber of Commerce and the coalition over a year ago, and Sherry Jensen, who picked it up, and Al has stayed with us, and Garrett and some others of us who have been in this partnership that's been developing, especially around housing and homelessness and employment. And also Carolyn Reed, St. Leo, I know she's not on, Social Justice Committee, who have picked up the 0.1%. And while we were beginning our meeting, I received a copy of the letter that the Tacoma Pierce County Chamber of Commerce has sent to Mayor Woodards and members of the council, that although they realize that 0.1% is in fact an additional tax, that the chamber is committed and has prioritized homelessness and housing in their work plan, and that the chamber understands that the mayor and the council are discussing the possibility of the city council enacting this tax, and that the chamber is supportive of this. And I would like, I know, it's like, yeah, I know. I went back and forth with my contact at the city 4 times saying, can I really say this? And so I would like, if no one objects, to write the letter for the coalition in the same vein, that we understand that the council is discussing this, that we are in support of them doing so. We understand that it is, an additional sales tax, but that it addresses our critical needs. This is money that goes for permanent supportive housing, affordable housing, and support services. City of Tacoma would generate 4.7 to 5.5 million per year. So unless there is an objection, I'll write that letter, and then depending on when the most appropriate time is, the council's schedule, I'll send out a sort of an all call to the coalition, to individual organizations or individuals who want to join in, send their own letters, offer their own support. So all of which is to say, just, sometimes it seems like the tunnel just doesn't have any light. And sometimes you just really get surprised. So some of these relationships take a long time and are pretty, it's like, why are we talking to the chamber? Well, this is why we're talking to the chamber, so that they understand what it is we do and are trying to do. So with that, anything else, I'll just put out, watch for things that in the subject line say advocacy alert. I'll try and be as clear as I can in the subject line. The legislature is going to move fast now. A package of tenant protection bills. The governor's budget's got that $70 million Sharon Lee talked about, capital budget for rapid shelter expansion, meaning you can buy hotels and motels, and also 40 million again for expanded shelter, which is what the 6th and Orchard is running on, the Rescue Mission's women's shelter, and the 20 hotel room beds based emergency shelter in Puyallup. Yeah, thanks everybody. I didn't see any objections, so we'll do the letter today.
Thanks, Al, for your comments. I love that. Persist. All right, so we have time rapidly running out for today's meeting. We got about 5 minutes left. Kevin, do you want to offer just a short little update about items that are being worked on from the Shelter Summit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So working with both Tacoma Ministerial Alliance and Associated Ministries on exploring ways churches might walk alongside families who are experiencing homelessness. There is one local church that is in the process of welcoming a family to come and stay with them for an extended period to provide support. We've had some outreach from Tacoma Family Medicine about ways that they might be involved in outreach with the homeless community, and we'll be following up on that next week with a meeting. They Purchase Project has submitted funding to, I think, CHI to get both training, outreach at the encampments around naloxone and basic wound care, those kinds of things. And then, yeah, I think those are the key things right now. And then also, there's some interest in doing some more hotel outreach, and we're helping a couple agencies who are looking at that.
Thank you, Kevin. I see Jeanette, you have your hand up.
Yes, hello. Before you ended, I just wanted to introduce myself. I've been listening in occasionally last Friday and months ago. I represent two organizations, Kyrie'sHouse.org, newly formed 5013C, to help victims of tragic situations. So I want to be a part of the group when I can, but also let you know that we have been funded by the Commerce Department with a $50,000 grant. We're looking for a match so that we can actually get started with helping. We supply burial expenses up to $500, food, clothing, and shelter for homeless victims and for those who are a product of tragic situations. And so I wanted to kind of let you know that, and I can email or send our contact information someplace in my phone number. And again, I look forward to being a part. I also represent landlords in Tacoma, a few of us, and I'm glad to hear about the rental assistance. But what about those who have moved on out of the homes, not being evicted, but have moved on and still owe rent? Is there some way to collect funds without taking them to court? And if anyone out there knows, let me know.
Yeah, I think Valerie might just be able to answer that real quick.
Yeah, under all of the current available funds, that will not be an eligible expense because these funds are to prevent evictions. And if they have abandoned their unit, then that's not preventing an eviction. So they would need to be in the unit in order to be eligible for these dollars. As of right now, that's where it stands. If that changes, I can reach out and let you know. But we are encouraging, as Maureen will tell you next, to encourage all folks to stay in their unit as long as they're safe. Like, there's very few reasons you can be evicted. And yes, we know landlords are finding those loopholes to where they're selling the units, but to stay in their unit if at all possible. But if they have already left the unit, unfortunately, those funds, there is nothing I know of currently that will pay those funds.
Okay, thank you all. Look forward to being a part of the group.
And thank you for introducing yourself, Jeanette. Kevin had a real quick thing, and then I see Donald, I see your hand up. So.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that we're working with University of Puget Sound. They're going to have a student, in the process of recruiting a student who will have 300 hours over the semester. And two components. One is to try to identify UPS students who are homeless and do some outreach there, but also to do some support work, whether it's research or outreach for the coalition. So we're in the process of trying to identify that student, and they will get an education grant as part for their work that they're doing.
Thank you, Kevin. And as obviously we're kind of moving to the end of the meeting and just kind of general items of interest, feel free to hang out. But I did see Donald had his hand up. So if you would like to say something, Donald. And I actually put you on mute, so you'll have to unmute. Sorry about that. Are you able to unmute, Donald? There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
I've been watching. I haven't been able to get to a meeting because I've been running from California back because of the family. But I wanted to say that House of Prayer Foundation has just purchased another house. We've been trying to. We have at the 37th Street house, Tacoma. I've been trying to. I've been reaching out because we have room, that we can house at least 7 guys in that. Plus we have rooms, upstairs, transitional, clean and sober. But no one has sent me my text me back or anything. And we just purchased another house plus the one on 37. We got plenty of room, plenty of storage. I just been waiting somebody to get back to me, and that hasn't happened.
Donald, do you want to put your, just tell us your phone number or email so that folks can reach out?
Area code 206-578-0652. And that's Minister Pitchford, House of Prayer Foundation.
Thank you. I'm glad you could make it to the meeting today.
Yeah, I'm in the car running before.
Yeah.
So much. And right now I have 2 or 3 guys that we just been letting, stay in the houses. But and this is, they're going to be glad to hear this because it's hard right now for my guys. So
one more time with your phone number, I'll actually put it in the chat.
Area code 206-578-0652.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that wraps it for today's meeting. I will do a quick announcement. Many of you already know, but the Bethlehem Baptist Church shelter is actually going on hiatus for the next month or so. The contract that the church had with Metropolitan Development Council wrapped up. They notified us of that change earlier this week. So the church has told us they have the intention of reopening in March. Not sure of the details of that yet, but wanted to make people aware. Other shelter providers were made aware earlier in the week, but I wanted the larger group here to know about it as well. Also call attention to what Garrett posted in the chat. We did have a section that we hoped to do and start as a regular thing today to highlight some items on the pchomeless.org website. We will make sure we make time for that next week, but he put the link there in the chat if you want to see that. And wish everybody a good weekend. I know that we're going to do our planning group next, so feel free to hang out if you'd like to help with the planning group. And I think we'll take about a 5-minute break before we launch into that.
Everybody be blessed.
You too.